Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. I make videos about movies, vintage shopping, and running an online business called Hey Red Shop. If you're interested in more longer form content, I do have a blog where I write more about movies called Eating Film. Today I wanted to talk about Don't Let Go. It got me, guys. I had no expectations going into this. I watched the trailer and I vaguely remember when it was being promoted a few years ago. The story is that a detective finds out that his family has been murdered. His brother, his sister-in-law, and his little niece. A few days later, he gets a call from his niece. I know. So sometimes with movies like this, I get very caught up in the how does something like this happen? You know, what caused something like this? And there is no explanation. It's just life happening. Really, for the story, that didn't matter. It didn't matter why it was happening. It just mattered that the opportunity was there for the detective to prevent the death of his family. That is all that mattered. The way that the story is framed, we see how involved they are in each other's lives. They seem to have very full lives. The family, the uncle has friends, and the neighborhood, and we really get a feel for them as people. And then we're suddenly on a clock. We have a deadline, and we need to figure out what's going on. So he is basically investigating his family's murder, and at the same time first trying to confirm that this is a real thing that's happening and that he's not the victim of some kind of disgusting prank, and which is logical. And because he's a detective, you know, he's smarter than the average bear, so they figure out a way to confirm it. And then he realizes that he cannot tell her what is going on, because where she is alive, everybody's alive, and everything is fine. So he is on his end, tearing up the city, trying to follow clues and figure out what's going on, and he realizes that he's going to need her help to do that, because there was no evidence that he could find to explain what happened to his family. And I appreciate that in these types of stories, because he doesn't become a scientist trying to figure out how to connect her and him and figure out a way to like be on her side of things. He's like, I'm a detective. That's what I've been trained to do. That's what I know how to do. So what I'm gonna do is do what detectives should do, which is follow the evidence, interview people, follow hunches. So he's doing the things that keep the story grounded. He's not like charting the stars and the moon to see if there was some weird kind of occurrence, or calling like an astrophysicist to figure out how this kind of thing could possibly be real. He accepts it as a reality and moves on to what is important, which is protecting his family. That creates so much depth for these characters. And in a story like this, where it could easily become like, oh, that's not really believable, or that wouldn't really happen. I mean, of course it, you know, but within the story, there are real grace notes that keep the story moving forward in a way that is realistic, it's understandable, and doesn't create a whole bunch of confusion, and feels authentic to those characters as they're experiencing what they're experiencing. Realizing what is happening and the acceptance of that, and having to move forward with your life, like the detective moving forward with his life after receiving a call from his niece who is dead, and every day he is confronted with that reality, and yet is still getting these phone calls, and is still like, I need to do what I need to do in order to protect my family. It was so good. As more weird clues come up and he starts to trace back the series of events that led to his family's murder, it just becomes so much more heartbreaking. because it already was. There's a groundedness to the story. People are making mistakes. They're heading in the wrong direction. Something turns out to be a waste of time. There's very realistic elements here that keep the story moving in a way that I found really engaging. It didn't make my attention slide. I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to know if somehow they would make it out and what would happen then, and who did this to them. Like, who is responsible for this? It was just a really heartbreaking story.
I'd give it a 4 out of 5 stars.
It was really good. I was very surprised. It is a real suspense thriller movie with lots of twists and turns that didn't feel thrown in. It felt like people genuinely trying to figure out what is happening and rolling with events as they're happening. I would recommend it. I think it is a really good movie and worth a watch or two. So thank you guys for spending your time here with me. I have some more movie reviews on the way, and I'll see you guys next time.